What's going on, guys? This is Rob, and with Thor 4 coming out and us basically getting Russell Crowe's Zeus, one of the big questions people are going to have here is, could Zeus have defeated Thanos? And if he could have defeated Thanos, why didn't he? Where was he when all that's going on? Okay, I have an idea about the second question, but let's answer the first question. Could Zeus have defeated Thanos? Yes, absolutely. At least Thanos without the Infinity Gauntlet, absolutely. Zeus would have beat the piss out of him, and it wouldn't have even been close. So here's the thing to understand about Thanos, at least really kind of borrowing from Marvel Comics. I mean, in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, everybody's weaker, just on average. No one's really as strong as their comic book version. Even the display of power with the Infinity Gauntlet wasn't as strong as it was in the comics. Honestly, what was really kind of shocking in Doctor Strange 2 is that the kind of power Wanda possessed, like when she took away Black Bolt's mouth because Black Bolt sucks, that was one of the very few instances that you've seen in the Marvel Cinematic Universe where it's kind of a carryover from the comics. I never actually expected that, for her to use reality warping and to take away Black Bolt's mouth so that he could kill himself because he's an idiot. So here's the thing. When it comes to these characters, right, let's say we just kind of borrow from Marvel Comics, Thanos, by and large, the guy runs away. Unless Thanos definitively knows he has the upper hand in a conflict, he won't fight. He'll usually end up taking off. Unless he has to fight, unless something has to happen. Like with Drax the Destroyer, it's usually that way. He always avoided a fight with Drax the Destroyer until you got to Annihilation when Drax ripped his heart out, which is pretty cool. But that's usually how all that stuff works when it comes to his character. So one of the things to know is that if a fight were to occur between Thanos and Zeus, Thanos would plan ahead of time. He would use prep time, right? The Batman MacGuffin, right? The way in which Batman beats everybody is prep time. But he would basically plan ahead in order to ensure that he would have some kind of caveat so he would come out on top. But if they were just thrust into a conflict with each other seemingly out of nowhere, right? Like Zeus is just bored and he knows Thanos is out there in space somewhere and Thanos is minding his own business and Zeus just teleports to him and just starts fighting him. Zeus would beat the hell out of him, right? Just absolutely trash Thanos. It'd be pretty rough. Having said that, in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, I don't necessarily know. We don't know enough about Zeus. But that does raise the question, where was Zeus during all of that stuff that was going on Earth, right? That why wasn't Zeus involved in any of that? And the answer to that question, I think, kind of falls into the same way as it was with the Eternals. Why didn't the Eternals do anything? Because they were told not to. Now, I know this kind of seems like just sweeping it under the rug, right? Just kind of a hand-wavy explanation, but I think this is cool because in the comics, that's how it played out. In the comics, the third celestial host changed a lot of things, right? I know the MCU plays by its own rules, right? But let's borrow, because in the absence of just any other explanation, might as well go with that one. In the comics, the way that played out is, of course, you have the first celestial host, right? The Celestials show up on Earth. They modify the genes of a segment of humanity, basically those residing around, like in and around Lemuria and Atlantis and all that. And so you got the Eternals, you got the Deviants, and then the third group had their genes modified so that at some point mutants emerge. That was the first host. The second host was when the Celestials came back to check on their experiment and the Deviants attacked them, right? So the Celestials sank Atlantis and all that kind of stuff, right? Initiated the Great Cataclysm and all that. The third host is when the Celestials came back and they found out, or kind of picked up on the idea that like the Asgardians and the Olympians and like the Egyptian pantheon of gods, that they were all getting involved in humanity, right? The humanity in different parts of the world were worshiping the Olympian gods and the Asgardian gods and the Egyptian gods and Vishnu and all those different gods. And because of the fact that it would basically take humanity off the path of it evolving on its own without any external involvement from any godly beings or anything like that, the Celestials were like, stay hands off. Keep your hands off of my humans, right? You know, get your stinking paws off my humans, you damn dirty gods. Like that's basically what they were doing, right? For those of you guys who know the Planet of the Apes meme, but that was the thing. That's what was going on. When that happened, the Skyfathers launched an attack against the Celestials using like the Destroyer armor. That's what it is. The name escaped me for a second. And like the Celestials just crushed the Destroyer armor, and they were like, if you keep this up, we're gonna kill you all. So either you stay hands off humanity or we'll just annihilate all of you. And that led to the Skyfathers just being like, okay, because like we want to live and we don't want to die. So like we'll stay hands off. And that's basically how things went from there. It's not that far outside the realm of explanation for that to be true. Because one of the things to keep in mind is that in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, In the first Thor movie, we were given an explanation that like way long ago, right? Long time ago, in a different part of the world, that people worshipped the Asgardian gods. And then one day they just stopped. And we never really got an explanation why. It's not that far outside the realm of possibility to believe the Celestials had shown up on Earth and realized that if the gods were basically interfering with the evolution of humanity, that could threaten the existence of Tiamat, right? Like Tiamat, the dreaming celestial, that they could like end up destroying the world or any number of things. I mean, it happened with the Watchers, right? The Watchers were like, hey, like we're super powerful. Let's like, hang out there and let's help other races. And they gave one race the power of nuclear energy. And then what did they do? They obliterated themselves. So the Watchers were just like, we're hands off now, right? Like they got broken up with one time and never dated again. But that's basically what went on there. So it's not that far outside the realm of possibility to look at like what was going on with the Greek gods and to know, or at least to believe in some way that somewhere along the line, they were told to stop interfering in the affairs of humanity. Now, whether that's the actual situation or not, I don't entirely know. Beyond that, I don't really know. Right? I mean, there are a couple things to keep in mind. So everything with the Celestials that you saw in that terrible ass Eternals movie, they borrowed a lot of that from Earth X. And in the Earth X story, as I understand it, the various gods came into existence because humanity just literally believed them into existence. They willed them into existence. And the power of the gods began to wane because humanity stopped believing in them. So I don't know if they would go that far. That seems even a little far-fetched for the MCU, right? It's a stretch. In a movie franchise with a giant purple guy who put some gems on his glove and blinked out half the life in the universe, right? In the same universe where you've got giant space gods that made things, can you really say anything is a stretch in the Marvel Cinematic Universe? I mean, 20,000 foot tall space gods whose heads are bigger than the Earth, them going around creating all things in existence, that fits, that makes sense, but willing gods into existence? That's a bit of a stretch, Rob. That's a bit of a stretch. Even for the MCU. Nothing's a stretch anymore in the MCU. Quite literally, there is a guy waiting at the end of time, just hanging out at the end of time and doing nothing but controlling a multiversal police force that polices the time stream. Nothing is a stretch in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. That word does not matter. It's a platitude. But nonetheless, right? That's the burning question that a lot of people are going to have, right? Like, is there going to be an explanation for why the Greek gods were not involved in like the whole event with Thanos? It's one of the issues you run into when you craft a story like Infinity War and Avengers Endgame, and that's like your opening salvo for like things are about to pop off. And then you start introducing groups later on down the line. It's like, okay, well, where were they when this was happening, right? Like, why weren't they involved when this was happening? If this was comic books, we would just kind of chalk it up and just say, whatever, and just kind of walk away from it, right? Just sort of ignore it. But when you're talking about the average movie-going audience that can't function if there's not some logical connection between A and B, then you start running into like a breakdown, right? Where even the suspension of disbelief begins to lose credibility, where people are like, all right, I mean, there's got to be some kind of explanation here. I mean, who knows? Maybe the Olympian gods became that TikTok video, right? You guys know the one that I'm talking about? Like, are you an adult? Yeah. Are people doing things that you don't like? Yeah. Introducing minding your own business, right? Like maybe that's what it is, right? Where the Olympian gods are like, does this affect us? No? Well, then it's none of our damn business. So we're just going to sit over here and we're going to keep our mouths shut and we're just going to let that thing do its thing. I don't know. One of the theories that I have seen going on right now is that the events of Infinity War and Avengers Endgame didn't matter to Zeus and those guys because they were dealing with Gore the God Butcher. That Gore was literally traveling around the universe and just killing different gods, and that was their focus. That's what they were basically looking at. And there's room for that, right? I mean, that kind of thing happens in Marvel Comics all the time. A really good example of that is while Civil War was happening on Earth in Marvel Comics, Annihilation was taking place. Literally, Richard Rider Nova shows up on Earth and is like, okay, so like Avengers, I need your help. Basically, Annihilus has escaped or has invaded from the negative zone and is just like, the Annihilation wave is just spreading across the universe. Quite literally, me and Star-Lord are leading a group of refugees who are just fleeing for our life. They captured Galactus, right? The Silver Surfer is powerless. Everything is dying. And then it turns out that humans are just fighting each other in civil war. And he's like, why are you even, this doesn't even matter, man. Like, some guy killed like a few hundred people in Stamford, Connecticut. Golly gee, a single tear rolls down my cheek. We got more important things to worry about. Let's go deal with the potential destruction of the universe, right? That's way more important. That kind of thing happens all the time. So I feel like that would be a great explanation when it's like, why weren't you guys involved in like Thanos and all that kind of stuff? And literally Zeus is like, what do you think's more important to us, right? Half of humanity and just mortal life being blinked out of existence because we're immortal, we can't die, so it's not like we could be dusted, right? Like we would be fine. And like, do you think it's that, right? Thanos, some demigod with like a shiny glove blinking out half the life, or like a being who can legitimately travel around and is legitimately killing various people, right? Like various godly beings that are out there. That's more important to us. That would make more sense, right? To me, that would make more sense. Is it kind of hand-wavy? Sure, but it fits in perfectly with the plot, right? And at this point, why not just roll with it? So let me know what you guys think down in the comments, right? Like, what's your all's theory for why it is that Zeus and them did not intervene during the whole series of events with Thanos and the Infinity Gauntlet? And as another question, let me know if you guys are getting tired of people asking that question, right? Well, where were they during Infinity War? Well, here's a question. Why does it matter? Who cares? Just enjoy the movie, right? Like, let me know what you guys think. Thank you all for watching, and I will catch you all later. Peace.